Okay, and this is part 3 of Tester versus iloveoOv in Pro League. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, the counterattack dance. So if iloveoOv went hauling ass down there just to take out maybe an expansion that's guarded with 2 cannons, he would probably get flanked and he might lose his army, but the counterattack dance is basically if he went hauling ass down there to kill one base, then Tester would very easily run around and probably kill OOV's natural, and then OOV would start heading to Tester's base, and then, you know, it'd get into a counterattack dance where they start counterattacking each other after every move they make. So I really think iloveoOv is just being really careful and picking the very precise time to start pushing here. As we can see him, that big old teal blob start pushing the way around the map. Okay, we see defensive matrix. That's really strange. I really expected EMP to work against that army. I mean, I really think he would demolish this army with EMP. What do you think about that? I mean, what do you think about the choice that really presents?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was really poor play right there because that really cost him this battle here. He casted defensive matrix twice on the same tank, and that tank was already pretty much halfway dead. So it was really poor play by iloveoOv there. Plus the fact that he didn't have the high ground advantage, and he tried to use defensive matrix, but it really didn't have much use. I really don't think that was a good choice. And I think I saw a Templar storm it, which does a lot of damage and pretty much negates the effect of defensive matrix, because it'll pretty much take away the defensive matrix. And once again he casts it when I think he really needs to cast EMP, just like you said. About 2 minutes ago, at the start of this match, we saw that a ton of probes were killed that were moving onto the base at about 3 o'clock for Tester. And it's, again, very damaging to his economy. But this battle is a very big turning point. I've been talking a lot about turning points this game, but it really is, because even though Tester lost a ton of probes, he was able to win that battle that he should have lost, especially with those 2 science vessels that could have casted EMP. So it's something that one mistake can cost you the game, which is a little bit tied into poor play by iloveoOv.
Well, in the Terran vs. Protoss theory, if you're a Terran player, which I am, the prime time to push is when you see him teching either to arbiters or carriers. But if you see him teching to arbiters, you push a little slower and a little more cautiously with science vessels and EMP and all that good shit. But if you see him teching to carriers, you're supposed to push a little bit faster, because once he starts gathering carriers, like you see Tester is now, he's probably got 3 or 4. Once that happens, it's really hard to be able to win this game, especially once you've lost a lot of your ground units like OOV did. Because once you see carriers come out, you're supposed to be able to crush the shit out of his ground army. That way he's left defenseless with only carriers, and then producing a ground army in the meantime. But I think OOV really pushed a little bit too late here, and I think that might cost him the game.
Yeah, he did take out the entire ground army for Tester though, but there's just too many carriers right now. There's 6 carriers, 5 now. And something that I was a little bit worrying about during this game was still OOV never casted an EMP on these carriers. So what really were the use of those science vessels? Possibly for detection against Dark Templar, or maybe arbiters, but really they didn't do much in the game. They didn't cast EMP when they really needed to. So especially these pushes that you're talking about when you saw those tech to carriers, really they failed pretty badly. Even though we see right now that OOV has a lot of Goliaths, there's just too many carriers right now, and basically Tester has a much stronger economy right now. What do you think? Do you think the game is already over at this point, or do you think OOV still has a chance?
I think when OOV had that big battle where he did the D-Matrix on his tank line there at the very front of that peak, I think that right there was the turning point of the game, as you were mentioning turning points. I think right there that really decided, because he really didn't do a whole lot of, even though he did take out Tester's army, his ground army at least, Tester did a significant amount of damage by really making sure he stayed on the high ground, and OOV couldn't really push up. But as you were saying, OOV using defense matrix was a bad idea. I don't really think it was a bad choice, but I think that it could have been a lot better choice. As you saw, Tester ran. There's that really narrow channel between the peaks, as you can see here. That even though Tester has the high ground, which I think maybe have pushed OOV to use D matrix, you can only hit the few tanks at the front and only a few vultures at the front of the peak, while the other ones are shooting in the back. So I think it was actually an okay choice to D-matrix those tanks in the front.
Yeah, but as I was talking about, I really think that the storms would just totally waste the use of that D-matrix, especially when there were cannons behind there, and Tester still had a lot of units. And basically, if he EMP'd all of those units, it would be better, as you said, because all of those units would technically be almost half dead. And right now we see that Tester is trying to defend this base over here with these carriers, and it's very bad for OOV since it's such a small choke to get up, and he can barely see those carriers. I don't even know if he can, because the carriers are up there. I think they can only see the interceptors. So I really think these are bad battles to pick for OOV. He's just choosing the wrong time to attack, and he really can't do much damage here, especially with these reinforcements for Tester coming up from behind. And again, you see that science vessel there, and it didn't do anything, which I really think was a waste of resources, since all of these science vessels that iloveoOv has had really haven't done anything this game except for cast that one defensive matrix, which you said did have some use, but really they haven't done as much as they should have done.
Yeah, EMP definitely. If he had EMP'd that entire army with maybe one or two well-placed EMPs, he probably wouldn't have even had to have seized, and he could have just rolled right over because there would have been no storm because of the EMP, and Dragoons would have lost 80 shield. Zealots also would have lost 80 of their shields, so that's about almost half of their life, as you were saying. And but by that time, I don't think it really would have mattered, because I think OOV really just pushed too late, and I think that was the deciding factor in this game, that he pushed late enough to where Tester already had 3 or 4 carriers. And even though he's putting up a real good fight now, it's just there's not a whole lot he can do. And timing of that push, this just shows that timing push is really important, as even his teammate Midas is known for having the really good timing in Terran vs Protoss.
Yeah, and as I said again, these are really bad battles for iloveoOv. He's still trying to attack those carriers when they have the high ground advantage, and he's trying to get up the narrow ramp, which I don't think there's any, he couldn't control that, but he really needs to find a better place to try and hit the carriers and intercept them before they get to those advantageous areas right above the ramp, where the Goliaths can't really do anything to him. And these storms are really good against Goliaths. I think it's almost a perfect counter.
Well, like I said, you use carriers, and then you slowly build up your ground army, and then once you have that happening, like Tester is right now, it's really hard to stop with only Goliaths. And even if you mix Goliaths with tanks, you won't have enough to deal with your carriers. And here we see the GG from iloveoOv, and a really well played by Tester. I really liked it.